and welcome to another episode of Consejos de Mis Coaches. If the stage looks a little bit different today, we're actually filming here at SMCC. And my name is Maria, as you guys may know by now. Today's episode is going to be about FAFSA, and I'm happy to be joined by Elizabeth Carlon. She is the Director of Financial Aid here at SMCC. So would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Of course, and thank you very much for having me, Maria. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name's Liz Carlon, or Elizabeth Carlon. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at South Mountain. I've been here for a little over 3 years and been in financial aid for about 20 years. So I've been around for a little while helping students, help fund their education.
Yeah, great. So we just have a little bit, we just want to have a discussion about FAFSA because sometimes it's really hard to understand what it is. And I know a lot of our students, have some misconceptions, and today's just a day to talk about it. So I do have some questions here, and we're going to start off, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So to start off, could you give us a brief description of what the FAFSA application is and why it is important for college students, to fill it out?
Absolutely. So the FAFSA application, first and foremost, it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. A lot of students don't really know what that acronym is, and it's important to know at least the first word because a lot of students, when they complete their FAFSA, they think that they may have to pay for it or that they may need to, have someone fill it out for them and then provide some kind of compensation. But the application is actually free to all students, and that's why I always emphasize it's a free application for federal student aid. The application is important for students to complete because that is the application that we use at campuses, at colleges, to determine students' financial need. So this is how we determine, what it is the student's going to be eligible for, whether it's a Pell Grant, a student loan, or any other kind of funding. And a lot of campuses and universities also use, or even third-party agencies use the FAFSA itself to determine financial need for other awards and other scholarships and grants as well.
Yes. Yeah, and that is something that we do stress with our students is that even if, your program doesn't accept federal aid, because that happens sometimes, correct, it's important to fill it out because a lot of, third-party scholarships do require it. So yeah, thank you so much. And you did kind of touch on the next question. So could you briefly describe the forms of financial aid provided through FAFSA? So you mentioned like the Pell Grant and loans, and when it comes to loans, there are two different kinds that you could get. So could you briefly describe those?
Yeah, so the Pell Grant is what most people, are interested in. The Pell Grant is what we call gift aid. It's a grant, so it's usually money that students don't have to pay back. It's money that the student would have to be eligible for, once again, through the determination of whether, they are or not through the FAFSA application. That is the Pell Grant. The subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loans are direct loans through the Department of Education. They are low-interest loans for students to be able to help pay for tuition, help pay for books, housing allowances, things like that, or living expenses, I should say. The difference between the two is that the subsidized loan, once again, you have to be eligible for that, right? And not all students are, but many are. At the subsidized loan, the benefit of that loan is that while the student's enrolled in school, and 6 months after the student leaves the school, graduates, or drops below halftime, that subsidized loan is being subsidized, meaning that the Department of Education is not charging the student interest on that loan, and the student's not responsible for paying that loan until those 6 months are up.
Okay.
The unsubsidized loan, that loan is accruing interest because it is not subsidized. So that loan is accruing interest as soon as the first disbursement comes to the school. The student, once again, is also not responsible for starting to make payments on any of those loans until 6 months after, but it is accruing interest for the unsubsidized loan.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, so our next question kind of includes about what you were just talking about. So what can a student expect their package to look like? You mentioned like the Pell Grant, the different loans if they qualify for them. So could you give them an idea of what it's going to look like once they receive it, and also I feel like a lot of students are confused that they have to accept everything in order to get any aid at all. So could you speak a little bit to that?
Yes. So when a student receives a financial aid award for South Mountain and the other Maricopa community colleges, we use our student center, which is the website that students use in order to see all of their financial aid, their account, all of those other good things, their schedule, things like that. But on their financial aid award, they'll be able to see what school, whether it's South Mountain or one of our other 9 colleges, has awarded them for what year, and on there it will list the different types of award the student's eligible for. If there is one that is not listed, obviously that means that the student was not eligible for it for the current year or the current semester, but on there the student will be able to see, for example, a student that's eligible for a Pell Grant and student loans. They will see that their Pell Grant is awarded, and it will tell them the annual amount as well as the amount per semester, and it will also tell them what subsidized loan or unsubsidized loan they qualify for. Now, the difference between the two is with the Pell Grant or any other grant or scholarship, those are automatically accepted for students because we know that they're gift aid, money that the student doesn't necessarily have to pay back. So when the student logs in, they'll see that those are automatically offered and accepted. For the loans, the student will see that the loan is offered, but under the accepted column, it'll be blank because the student has the option of either accepting or declining the loan, and they can choose whether or not they want to do that.
Okay, great. So then my next question is, what are some common misconceptions about filling out the FAFSA? As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our students, feel like there are just a lot of mystery surrounding the FAFSA. And so what are some common misconceptions? And then how would you construe them, I guess?
Sure. So, I think that one of the most common misconceptions is that they're just not going to be eligible because they either heard from a relative or a friend or a neighbor that someone else they know was not eligible for financial aid. One of the most common misconceptions is that financial aid or the FAFSA, completing the FAFSA, is only for the Pell Grant. Students sometimes don't realize that it's not just the Pell Grant, but it's also some of those other resources, right, like the student loans and federal work study. So students automatically say, I don't qualify. They may be referring to they don't qualify for a Pell Grant, but they could possibly qualify for other things. Another misconception is that students believe, well, my parent makes too much money. But oftentimes that's not the case. Or maybe it is the case that their parents, have a great job and they have good income. But until the FAFSA is completed, we don't really know. So it's hard for us to gauge from a simple conversation that we're having with the student. So that's why we always recommend complete the application. You may be, surprised to know that you are eligible for a Pell Grant or maybe a partial Pell Grant, a portion of it. And then some student loans, or the student may very well not be eligible for any Pell Grant and just student loans, but at the very least it gives that student, the peace of mind knowing what it is they do qualify for. And like I said, sometimes there are other grants or scholarships that could be awarded based on, just financial eligibility or financial need that they may qualify for if it's not necessarily just the Pell Grant.
Yeah, and I think it goes to say, trying never hurts. And like we mentioned, it's a free application. So you're not really losing anything just applying. And like you said, you might be surprised. So yeah, thank you. Moving on to the next question. So what are some resources that you would recommend students and their families take advantage of if they do need assistance filing the FAFSA?
Well, specifically to South Mountain, we host financial aid workshops, or FAFSA workshops, I should say, every Friday from 2 to 4 here in our financial aid office or in the conference room right next to us. We also tell students, you don't have to wait for Friday from 2 to 4. If you want to come visit us anytime that we're open here in the student enrollment building, we're available to help you one-on-one. We encourage students to bring all of their documentation, their information, bring your parents, bring your family so that we can help you one-on-one if need be. But there's also other resources around the community, right? There's a lot of students, high school students that can reach out to counselors. I know that there's a lot of FAFSA nights available, not just at the high schools, but some of the colleges. There's other third parties that also provide that assistance. There's also on the studentaid.gov website, there's some tutorials and some information about, what FAFSA is, what the different resources are. what everything stands for to help students. But I truly believe that in person is the best way. So we welcome any student that needs assistance, whether they're going to be attending South Mountain Community College or not. We encourage them to come see us so that we can help them fill out that application here on campus.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Actually, I didn't know that you guys offered it to students outside of SMCC. That's really great to know. So moving on, once a student has submitted their FAFSA, once they've gotten any help that they need, what are the next steps for them to take after submitting that application?
Well, normally what happens is once the FAFSA application is submitted, the student will receive a confirmation email from the Department of Ed letting them know that that's been received. We usually say 3 to 5 business days before the campus or the school receives the results for the application. That's what we've normally seen in the past. When it comes to South Mountain specifically, once we receive the application, what our system does is that it does an initial review to make sure the application looks good, that there's no questions or any additional documentation that's needed. If everything looks good, then in the Student Center, the student will be able to see that they've been awarded their financial aid based on their enrollment for the current and the upcoming semester for the year. Let's say that maybe the FAFSA does come through, but it's not, maybe there's question, or maybe the student has been selected for verification, which is a process that Department of Education uses to verify some items on the application. If that's the case, the student will also be able to see on their Student Center that there are some additional questions or documentation that's needed by them, and it will tell them exactly what needs to be done and provide links to the things that they need to complete or fill out. And of course, we're always a resource, right? So even though, it's listed on their Student Center what it is they need to do, we're always available via chat, we're always available via email, in person, and we also have our call center for financial aid where we can help answer questions for them.
Okay, great. It kind of touches on my next question, which is part of the process is keeping an eye on your application and keeping an eye on your Student Center. So when they do get those to-do list items, like you mentioned, you can just go in there. They do provide useful links if you click on the actual to-do list item. Could you speak a little bit more about what's the process of getting those to-do list items done? I know a lot of students worry about them when they see them in there. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, there's definitely a concern when students see a to-do list item because it's another hurdle, another thing that they have to complete. And we completely get it. There's a lot that goes along with applying for financial aid, and we understand the students and the frustration that may be brought with that. But once again, it's something additional that has to be completed. Unfortunately, without that additional documentation, we're not able to determine eligibility or release any financial aid. And I always, let students know it's policy, it's process. It has to be done in order for us to confirm, but they are not alone. Many students get selected for similar processes. Many students are asked, those additional questions. And when I say they're not alone, I truly mean that, not just because other students are in the same scenario, but because we're here to help. That is our job. That's why we're here. We're here for the students. So anytime there's a question it's not clear, just ask. Call us, email us, as I mentioned previously, or chat us. We are here to help them. If students want to sit down and complete the form in front of us, we can absolutely do that. We can walk them through the whole process so that they get as much assistance as needed so that they feel comfortable with the process.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I tell students about when they do get to-do list items. It's like, I know it seems like another thing I have to do, something I need to fix. And on their part, I think it's important for them to understand it's not like they did something really, really bad and did something wrong, but it's just a matter of, we need to get some things settled. And it's like you said, you just have to ask. And, your department is here for that, to help these students. So thank you so much. And then, so my last question is, how do students accept their FAFSA package? You kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. So what are some things you want them to keep in mind as they look at those, loans, and they look at their package in general?
Sure. So, once again, how do they accept their package or their awards? Through the Student Center. That's the way to do it for us here at South Mountain and for Maricopa students. you know, when they're going in and accepting awards, you touched on that a little bit earlier, where you said some students feel like they need to accept everything. It's an all or nothing, and that is absolutely not the case. The student has every right to accept what they want to accept and decline what they don't want. If the student is afraid of taking out a student loan or not quite sure, like I said, there is a lot of information online that provides students with interest rates and all of those things. But one additional step that we do here for students is when students indicate that they are accepting a student loan through our campus, is any student that is borrowing a student loan for the first time here at South, we actually have them complete a loan entrance counseling session in person.
Okay.
So many other places students complete something online, but we really feel the importance of having students come in person and sitting through, it's about anywhere from a 30 to 40 minute session where we go through in detail and explain to students what loans are, how loans work, the interest rates, you know, and what that process, that loan borrowing process looks like. Accepting the loans, borrowing the loans while they're in school, after they graduate, and also some of the negative things that could happen if students don't pay those loans back, because it's so important for students to know all of that. And as they're accepting or looking at their awards, if there's any question, once again, communication is key. Please feel free to reach out. I can't stress it enough. Most students, not most students, but I would say many students, you know, it breaks my heart when they're getting ready to graduate and share with me in passing or maybe at a session or something that they just never realized financial aid was an option for them and how much they've struggled in order to be able to get to graduation. And so I always feel like there's always room for opportunity. We always want to get the message out. We are here to help. Please come find us. Please come talk to us. We will help you, and we will talk to you about resources, whether it's through Title IV funding or other resources that are available.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to kind of summarize what you're saying, I think the main thing students should take away from this is that if you have questions, please ask. If you do see those to-do list items and you're stressing out about them, ask somebody for help. Whether that's the HSI team so that we can, you know, get you in contact with those resources, or if it's reaching out to those resources directly. People are going to help you, which is, I think, really comforting going into FAFSA. I remember as a student personally, when I was first filling it out, especially as a first-gen student, it's hard to feel like you know what you're doing and to really feel confident filling something out. And you know, it can be really taxing on a student. So thank you so much for all the information you gave us today. I hope that you all are learning a lot about FAFSA. And as we go into the new year and a new application, we're all going to be learning together. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Maria. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.